So, question is, what do you do with sin? Well, the first thing you do is exactly as David did in his words in Psalm 51. I know that I've sinned against God. I admit exactly what I did. I don't want to live in that raggedy, foul smelling evil any longer. I want to be restored to friendship with God. I want to be restored to honest praise and thanksgiving to Him. Problem is, among other problems, we're often too proud to admit that we've done this chain of wrongs and that these things have soiled our relationship with God. Pride is the secondary sin that becomes the supporter and the crutch and the friend for the sin we committed in the first place. Now, when I was a younger man, when I lived in drink, when I lived in pornography, I could not get back to living in the light of God's face until I laid down broken and admitted that I'd been living in my miserable, filthy condition for far too long. It's somewhere between hard and darn near impossible to admit the depth of our sin against God and our fellow humans. Yet we have to. And once we do, only then are we able to step out of those rags and truly start living. Now, some people will say the weight is lifted off our shoulders, and that's indeed true, but you still enter this new life understanding that you're going to have to face the consequences of the wrongdoing while you were dressed in those new clothes, as we clothe ourselves in righteousness, as we clothe ourselves in that new clothes, that newfound freedom, having been released from that sin, having admitted it and gone forward and seeking right relationship with God, we still have to face whatever it was we did when we were dressed in rags. For David, it was having to live with the death of his child and comforting his wife while the wife he'd taken in sin, while still living the renewed life of repentance and change before God. For me, after the life of wallowing in filth, it was starting to rebuild marriage, parenthood, the joy of real and profound walk with God, church, all of those things. Still having to live with who I was, knowing that I was that person, but I still stepped forward with a clean heart. For Paul, the apostle who wrote that stinging and consuming third chapter of Romans, one of the most famous passages in all the Bible, it was ministering among his former colleagues in the life of Christian persecution, as well as the Christians he'd formerly persecuted. Talk about a heart wrenching apology tour, yet he did it, and so should we.